Hello, this is Eric Morris Eskenazi. I am the host of the Iraq Dispatches podcast. Thanks for tuning in to this latest episode featuring an interview with comedian, podcaster, and video artist David Feinberg discussing his stand-up career, his co-hosting of the So Tell Us podcast, and the Feinberg Experimental Light Project. Hello, thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break.
So David, are you based in Philadelphia?
Yeah. So I've been in Philly for I was in Philly for college and then 3 years after, I guess. Yeah. So coming up on like 7.5 years here, which is crazy.
Yeah. Do you like it over there?
Yeah, it's a really wonderful city. I constantly have moments where I feel like I know it. And then even today I was walking with someone and I walked them like to the door of their house, and I was in like a completely different beautiful area that really was like just very like almost awe-inspiring to be like walking around. It's got a lot of really lovely like little hidden gems, and yet it also can be very like gritty. It's a wonderful sort of a place to live.
Yeah, I was there like in September of 2017, and yeah, it's nice. I like the old streets there and the architecture there. Yeah.
What were you out in Philly for?
Well, my mom was like visiting. My parents. I'm originally from California, so my mom was there for like a few days, part of like some senior citizens group there. They were having some convention there, so she's like, "Oh, if you're available, why don't you come by?" And I'm staying at like I don't know, was it Hilton or Sheraton? It was right next to the Greyhound station, so it was very convenient to me to take the bus 2 hours over there, and I just spent the weekend with her. And
lovely.
And then I walked around, explored the city on my own. I hadn't been there since like the late '90s, so it was nice to catch up on the city.
People say it's changed so much. I was born here in '96, and then we moved out to the suburbs, and I moved back in for college. So, but people have said like, I live in the same area where my dad lived in the '80s, and he was like, this used to be such a hardcore neighborhood. Like, now he's like, there's like beautiful looking people like rolling their strollers down the street. It's wonderful.
It's all become gentrified, like any other major city,
Major gentrification.
Oh yeah. Just like here in New York City, I've been here now for almost 30 years, and I've seen the neighborhoods change so much. Like become hipster neighborhoods, where before they're like crack neighborhoods, basically.
Right. Did you what part of New York are you? Have you always been in the same part?
Well, I've been living in Brooklyn. I first moved to Brooklyn in '95 when I was finishing my studies at NYU, and then like I lived in Queens for 5 years, which was okay. And then I came back to Brooklyn in was it 2003? So yeah, been here for almost living here in this borough now for it's 18 since I came back. So yeah, but it's just changed so much. People are always bitching about it or doing blogs about it, like like this area used to have like really cool like bar or whatever, and now it's like a bank or whatever.
Right. And blogs, what an accessible format to complain about it. Everyone loves to read everyone's blogs. Yeah.
So David, what were some of your inspirations in comedy? Were there any particular figures in either stand-up comedy or in film or in audio or in television that really inspired you as a kid to get into it?
When I was younger, I would say that the first things that were really inspiring to me were I was in a lot of plays when I was little, and I remember that there was an element of we would do shows that were very, very much like they had small comedic elements to them, and that was very like inspiring. I had a friend that I grew up with, and Shrek came out, and it's weird to track it back to these kinds of things, but like Shrek, I've seen Shrek like 10,000 times, but like I used to act out parts of it with friends of mine, and we would I remember that was like the first element of like stage and performance that came into my life, as well as I mean, I a big part of my connection with my father came about through the use of comedy and specifically Mel Brooks movies. My father and I watched The Producers when I was way, way, way too young to have seen it, and actually, both of my parents showed me comedy that I really probably did not understand or have a grasp of. So my dad showed me Mel Brooks stuff and The Producers, and that, I mean, it was like very much like you have to understand that like a show is put on by producers. But I like just I think that initially it was just seeing my dad laugh a lot that brought about this sense of like, oh, this is good. And then my mom is very into theater, and she had tickets to see Phantom of the Opera when I was in like first grade. But we were listening to the soundtrack in the car on a CD, and I would get very scared of the part where the woman sees the phantom and screams. And I was like crying in the car. I was so terrified. And so she was like, we can't see this show. He's going to freak out. It'll traumatize him forever. He'll have weird sex in the future or whatever. And so she bought us. I don't know why to this day. She bought us tickets to La Cage aux Folles,
Mm.
which is like the inspiration for the Birdcage and all these things. And it's about like cross-dressing gay men. And I remember it like being like, this is bringing. I remember it being in first grade being like, this is bringing up some confusing feelings. Like, but it's wildly funny as a
Mhm.
show, and it like, I mean, it's an incredibly dirty humor. And I remember that was very, very inspiring. Both of my parents sort of having this like love of irreverent comedy that was like something that I knew was beyond my pay grade as a young person, and that from there I valued extremely highly making adults laugh, and would do it whenever I could. I would like corner adults at parties and like talk to them as if I was very grown up. And I remember people were like, I always wanted to impress upon them that I had knowledge like an adult, and that they would think that that was very funny for some reason. And so and there is something very funny about that, like a child that is like, well, the stock market's going crazy these days or something like that. And so that was very much the way that I like to push things. Also, my mother's, and she would probably not like me to say this, but an incredibly dirty, crass. Both of my parents are crass in very different ways, and crassness was always. We had certain words that we were not allowed to say when we were growing up, and I would just use them at school, and so I learned how to switch, like code switch,
Mhm.
basically between school and home. And that's something that I still find in a lot of my comedy today is like dualism and the shock value of
Mhm.
certain elements of comedy and certain words or phrases not being in the correct space, or just hefty contrast. I think is one of the greatest artistic forms, as well as one of the greatest comedic forms in my mind.
And how long have you been doing stand-up comedy?
I started when I was 19, officially like going up on stage, holding a microphone, doing that. Um, and now I'm going to be 25 this month. So it's been a how long is that? Not that long. It doesn't sound
Mhm.
very impressive, but it's been a good while. And yeah, it's very strange to think about how different those worlds have been from 19 to 25.
Mhm. In Philadelphia, is there a big like comedy club scene there?
It's been a strange thing. So Philadelphia's main clubs are Helium Comedy Club, which I love, and I think it's a great club. And I worked there just as an usher for a long time, but I met a lot of really great people there. And then Live Nation created a club called Punchline that I have a lot of friends that work there, but it's not like my home club, air quotes home club. Um, I that is like run of the mill mom and pop style stand up comedy, but Philadelphia also has a very like strange art scene and a lot of like the more independent stuff. I mean, this is pre-pandemic figures, but things like the Good Comedy Theater, which put on a lot of really insane and like irreverent shows, but also brought a bunch of like really good like independent comedians to Philadelphia, was going really hot and heavy before the pandemic. And then the Philly Improv Theater, which was in like waxing and waning with leadership and things like that, and a lot of different things that uh, like it was definitely a hub for improv, but
Mm-hmm.
it never really had a major take. Philadelphia very much had like an improv golden era for a little while that it seemed like the Philly Improv Theater was at the helm of. Unfortunately, it seems like things have really unraveled there, but Good Comedy Theater was like really in quite high esteem as both like an experimental place for comedy as well as really like culturally, like you would see cool hot people going there and things like that. And that's of course how we mark the zeitgeist of America, is where the hot people go.
Have you had a chance to travel around to other cities to do your stand-up work?
I've done so I do a lot of different kinds of comedy. I do stand up, sketch, and improv. And I would say that stand up and improv have been my main focuses for the past 2 or 3 years. And of the traveling that I've gotten to do, I've done a little bit of traveling for stand up. Um, of course. Another great hub of Philadelphia comedy, Philadelphia live comedy, was Cave.
Mm-hmm.
Cave was run out of a basement up in North Philadelphia and became this like party house comedy show. And we got really big names that came through there before it was shut down by the landlord. The reason that I mentioned that is because um, I was part of the team there, and we used to travel for one or two shows every now and again. We would go out to New Jersey to perform in basements out there, or we would go up to like like an hour north of Philadelphia to perform in like an attic. That is, I find to be one of the best things, is to travel and do like a backyard or a basement or things like that. I find like to do comedy in weird, strange spaces and then be able to address it is really a great thing. In terms of improv, I traveled pre-pandemic to Baltimore, Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
Steel Sax Comedy Festival up in what is that, Lancaster, Allentown. Steel Stacks is just this huge venue, like a little north of Philly.
Hmm.
So it's been limited in its travel, but it's each time it's very strange to go on the road. Yeah.
You meet a lot of eccentric characters there, like in different parts or different comedy clubs.
Yeah, there's always something. I think that stand up especially is something that attracts weird, irreverent people, and that's sort of
Mm-hmm.
the great joy of it, is that you see these like because I think that the world of performance and the world of comedy are so interlocked in a lot of ways. We had strange people like at the Fire, which is a venue space that's attached to an old firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy like Bongo Jerry, who
Mm-hmm.
was this like irreverent beat poet who would bring bongos on stage and improvise a poem about people in the audience. And I think that Philadelphia, especially, has always been a strange kind of a hub for these things. A strange sort of I mean, it really has a long history of being like the mashed up focal point of craziness where people just sort of get to do as they please, especially in an independent sense. It also has a very big chip on its shoulder compared
Mm-hmm.
to New York. I mean, it sits in the shadow of New York all the time, and we are constantly incubating people that go to New York, but I think that I like it because it means that sometimes the loop is reversed, that New York people will come down to Philadelphia and try something out,
Mm-hmm.
work on stuff, run a new hour, or put on like a very strange, upsetting show, like something that
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't dare to try in New York. That's very exciting to me.
And have you done like any work like in like independent films or web series?
Yeah, so in college, that was, I would say, was when I did the most stuff on a sketch basis.
Mm-hmm.
I was in production for a while, and in college I studied like media production, and it was mostly an excuse to do comedy at night because
Mm-hmm.
the track was not as grueling as one would think. So it meant not only that, that it also meant that there were like football players often who had the major that I did. But I worked on a fantastic show in college called Temple Smash. Temple is the name of the college, my alma mater, and Temple Smash was this long running show that I was the executive producer of for a year, and that was like the crazy, wacky thing, and it had like a nice established basis of fans and people had heard about it and things like this, and yeah, that was like the sketch stuff that I did, and then also, of course, there's like little independent shit all the time. Your friends ask you to go and be, a hot dog that has a big dick or something, or like, a, be in a bathtub with them or something like that. And that's also really fun. Like I once had to fall down the stairs like 14 times for a sketch. It was just like a really fun, and obviously it's like faked out, but you get to do like really wacky, weird ass shit with your friends, and that's, I guess, sort of, that's the point to life in a way.
Since the shutdown, I guess, have you been doing like any like stuff on like online, like any like shows online and stuff, or like Zoom comedy shows, or?
So I've been doing a few different things. So since the shutdown, I've done a few shows. A really great show with Sarah Monster and Betty Smithsonian in town, that's online, called Shitty Jews.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Jewish comedians and non-Jewish comedian and the others, and we all get on, and you just I don't know. This might be a strange. I know that this is your podcast can be very art based. It's very strange to be announcing this. Jews love talking about shit and poop and farting and all
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and we always for some reason when we get together as a group, it seems to come across in a really great way, and so that's been a really cool show, and that's all we do is we just talk about poop and fart and shits and like shitting your pants and things like that, and I love that kind of a thing. Like, where does the like it's crassness in like a childish sense, so that was a really fun show. I started this. I mean, I suppose everybody. It feels like everybody started a podcast, but I started a podcast with my friend Jared McCallie, and so we originally started off like interviewing comedians and writers and things like this, and now it's just become more of a two talking heads kind of a thing, and that's been an interesting new exercise in a lot of ways. And I've also done, like stand-up shows and like things on Instagram Live. It's been and then also I was part of a very big open mic here in town at Fergie's Pub, and
Mm-hmm.
we started an online version of it called Stand Up Comedy Sundays, or Sucks. And so I was working as like a producer on that for several months of quarantine, and that was a very like intense production experience led by Kat Mosley, who's an absolutely wonderful comedian from Philadelphia, and it was just really great to be working on that from a production standpoint under her leadership. Really fantastic show.
Yeah, when I was at Philadelphia, like about almost 4 years ago now, like It's funny because, like, since living in Brooklyn, like I used to live in Crown Heights, where like the Lubavitchers are based at. So like
Mhm.
they actually approached me there when I was in Philadelphia because I'm so used to having them like approach me, especially during the holidays.
Yeah.
Do they have a? Is it does Philly have a pretty big Jewish community?
We have I would say that like there's definitely like pretty heavy or like there is an Orthodox population, but I would say that right outside of Philadelphia, where I went to high school, is called the Main Line, and there is
Mm-hmm.
a humongous Jewish population out there, and it's very entrenched. So I would say that as someone that's like involved in Jewish education, I don't think that I seek it out or like see I would say I don't see it very often. I'm sure it's out there. Philadelphia has a strange way of doing that where they will like it will hide a certain element of things from you,
Hmm.
and then if you keep an eye out for it, you'll see it again. It's very strange in that way. I feel like Philadelphia has a lot of little bubbles and it feels like a very small town, but then you remember how many people are actually living here. I hope that that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think were they burning their masks like because like last year they were burning their masks. Not in my neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood that has a pretty big Orthodox community, but like neighborhood next to us, they were like having like bonfires in the middle of the street and burning their masks. So
I don't know anything about that, but I do know I've got rather extensive experience with the Orthodox community, not as a member or anything, but
mhm,
just like sort of living as much as you do with like high school, like being
mhm.
with that group. And it's definitely like, it is an element of like Jewish thought and belief that I struggle with a lot. And I would say, frankly, that I mean, it's a pretty intense sector of things. I understand that in New York it got rather tense.
Yeah, really, really intense here. And well, because a lot of them, supported Trump. So, which, yeah, but I know you mentioned you like you're like your dad introduced you to like Mel Brooks
Hmm.
films and stuff. Were you also like did you like Carl Reiner's films?
Actually, what I suppose the only one that I've really seen is like the Jerk, which is more Steve Martin, but I know that Carl Reiner is the director,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that like definitely took on more of an abstract role in my mind, and I didn't see
Mm-hmm.
it till much later, but
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I love that. I mean, that was a mind blowing element, and sort of the next step of things was that I started getting very much into like weird sketch comedy from the
Mm-hmm.
internet as like
Mm-hmm.
the sketch community around College Humor
Mm-hmm.
and uh, all of these different people, Murder Fist and Derek Comedy, and all of these very weird like picnic face kind of thing, like weird sketch internet comedians that became sort of like a cultural touchstone of my middle school experience and became sort of a social currency to like know the lines of and perform a little bit and to quote to each other. I mean, I still see friends of mine from there and we'll like throw quotes back and forth. It was just it was very much like a big thing for us.
Was there like any unusual experiences like that have inspired some of your comedy?
Um, hmm. I would say that when it comes to comedy, I feel like there's a lot of time that you spend just on the like outside of things.
Mm-hmm.
When you are I feel like if you take on and really love a comedic mindset, you constantly are watching what's going on around you and you're looking at things and saying what about this is weird, what about this is strange. And I think that life always affords weird little moments like that, strange things like um and like life is such a fucked up weird mess of a thing that you constantly, if you keep your eyes open, life is an incredibly entertaining thing. And I think that the strangest thing to me is the people that don't think that, the people that think that are very straight laced and think that life is sort of steady as she goes. Life is
Mm-hmm.
so weird and odd, and you see there's always shit in the alley behind your house and you don't know why, and it's not dog shit, it's human shit. So why do they always shit right here? This is such a weird place to shit. They have diarrhea on the wall. See, I'm talking about shit again. So like there's weird fucked up situations. I mean, I've been in like a million weird situations over the course of life, but I suppose that every time I do get into one, and sometimes I seek them out and sometimes they just happen, but I think that every time I get into them, I think, yeah, this is just like what life is like.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be more interested to see the people that don't think that that's what life is like and see what they have to say, like how they justify throwing up at the art museum or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that happens to them.
When you come up with your own comedy material, I guess are you sort of drawn to both like the lightness and the darkness, of humankind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of my stuff became about like things that are not said,
Mm-hmm.
things that are not politely said, and like I I I have a lot of moments in my comedy where it'll be like I will say something rude or upsetting and it becomes, I like the to inflate the room full of sort of an uncomfortable moment and then bring everybody down and have everyone in this sort of like communal experience. And the light and the dark of it, I suppose, like sometimes I'll tell, I have a lot of jokes about like the Holocaust and things like that, but
Mm-hmm.
then I also have like jokes about Harry Potter and things like that. And I think that moving between the two things is what's really fun. I wish I could tell you that it was driven by some, internal cause or something like that, but it really just is. I hope this is with any art, just sort of like the things that you enjoy and want to make. Like if you if you want to like to walk around and be like, I want to have a big purple painting, or for me, it'd be like, I want to have a joke about the Ghostbusters. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like those drives are exciting and lovely and really like um can press you and also are simplistic. Like if I want to have a joke about the Ghostbusters because I think it sounds good
Mm-hmm.
and because of the joy of getting to perform a joke about the Ghostbusters while you, I mean, I feel like I'm very conscious of my age. So like at 21 to be in a backyard and like drinking a beer and telling a crowd of people a funny thing about the Ghostbusters is a wonderful moment to have, and to be like, to have that as your end, as an end goal in mind, to be like, what is funny about this, and then begin the breakdown process is a really wonderful way that I've found to like approach the art of it. And I really do feel like there is an art to it, even though a lot of comedians are like pretentious in their own right and will never say that it's art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hello, thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break.
Since the shutdown with COVID and
Mhm.
all the things that are going on in this country, all the fucked up things that are happening politically with this country, do you think that has affected you or other comedians with your sense of comedy? Like, do you think it's made it more cynical?
I I do wonder. I mean, people were taking things very very seriously, and I suppose I could just speak to it personally, right? And I think that what I'm looking forward to is not doing jokes about the pandemic or
Mm-hmm.
Trump or anything like that, and just sort of getting back to enjoying little stuff. Not I mean, not because I think it's so important to not talk about things that are politically charged, but I do think that the great joy in life will be to get back to telling. It'll be a very watermark moment to be like, I'm telling jokes about the Ghostbusters in a backyard again.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. I know that other comedians do that wonderful, wonderful justice. For me, I'm not one who talks much about politics,
Hmm.
especially like on a current event side.
Hmm.
But to those who do, I absolutely love it.
So far I've listened to some of the episodes of your So Tell Us podcast. I really enjoyed it, and I know so you guys talk about films and stuff. So I assume that you enjoy watching. Is there do you like watching all kinds of genres, or is there any particular genres that you're really more drawn to watching?
Um, it, hmm. I have I collect DVDs, and
Hmm.
I have a listing of all of them, and most of them, a lot of them are comedy movies, but it really is like I like to think that there's a litany of different things. I really when I was growing up, I was like terrified of horror movies, so every now and
Hmm.
again I'll try to get a classic horror movie in there. I do feel like there's like a health thing in my
Hmm.
head of like you have to vary up the points of how like the things that you've seen and things like that, just to get a nice varied perspective, and also because life is short, you might as well watch John Carpenter's The Thing.
Hmm.
It's important to watch it, I guess. And yeah, I would say that most of the time I just like I like everything about a movie. I like the experience of going to the movies. I like the experience of just watching a movie in your house. I love the way that it evokes emotion. I think that that's the most important thing, is any movie that just like evokes heavy emotion or a certain feel
Hmm.
is really a nice place to start. And especially when it's like if you're watching a movie with someone and they say this movie is really great, it made me feel this way, and then you get to experience something with them. It's like a really powerful form of empathy.
Hmm. What are some of your upcoming projects that you're working on?
Well, I would say that the 50th episode of Sotellus
Hmm.
podcast is looking to come out in the next few
Wow, that's
weeks.
great.
And we're very excited about that. And also, Sotellus podcast, I mean, it started off as just two people with no microphones, and now it's grown into something with like a Patreon. And like
Hmm.
sometimes people will be like Jared, my co-host, was like, I was at a skate park the other day and a kid said that he liked this episode. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, who, what? And so that's an extremely exciting process, that this thing that's just sort of coming out of your brain. And we have like a wonderful producer now, Mike Peters. So that's really exciting on that side of things. Um, every now and again I put out some more stuff like on the internet. I find that my Instagram is a good place to just be like
Hmm.
weird and fucked up and strange. So I know that people are like, Instagram is not comedy, but once now that I'm second vaccinated up, I suppose that hopefully I'll be getting back out there in Philly, or perhaps somewhere else. But we'll have to see about that, and hopefully that means that this is like a spring and summer of a lot of like weird little indie shows and things like that as more people get vaccinated. And then I also have a video art uh, channel
Hmm.
called the Feinberg Experimental Light Project, and we've been making some videos. We just the team and I just released something for Full Contact Audio, a great noise project out of Philadelphia that is headed by Lev Ziskind of the band Witching, who are a fantastic black metal band.
Hmm.
And we're also looking at something with Keandre. I forget what his project is called, but he recently reached out to us about more video work. I mean, if anyone is listening to this and needs visual work done, I just love creating things, especially if it's like, to music. I also recently I released something with Kevin Giggler on his new album, The Wolf in Our Own Backyard, which is his new album that really is pretty fantastic. And every now and again, you just make weird topsy turvy shit. Right before a little bit before the shutdown, I guess, the Retina's a band out of Philly. I did
Hmm.
live visuals for them, and there were some
Wow.
fantastic photos and pieces. That was for their album release. So it's all been really cool. That's the thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that like the comedy stuff, I have like a pressure on myself to be like,
Mm-hmm.
keep it running and rocking.
Mm-hmm.
But the visual stuff has just been a fun, get the gas off the pipes kind of outlet. And
Mm-hmm.
every day, that community and that art style is a really interesting new like piece of thing.
And what's the type of footage that you use for like the experimental videos? Is it like, do you take like pre-existing stuff, like some analog video footage, and
Mm-hmm.
mix it in with digital?
Yeah. So actually, people won't be able to hear this, but behind me is my TV, and then a VCR, and the
Mm-hmm.
TV also has a built-in VCR. So we do a lot of VHS work.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a VHS, as well as a Panasonic MX50, which is like an old-timey video mix board. That used to be like a compact studio mixer from the 80s that I
Mm-hmm.
use to bring things together.
Oh.
And so I've just been collecting uh, a variety of tapes from shitty antiques
Mm-hmm.
stores, and Tyler Kelch, who is a fantastic documentarian, uh, recently gave me a big donation of tapes. So I've been moving through those. And then also the other day, I got like a HDMI to AV converter. So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited for that like next leg of things,
Mm-hmm.
to be taking computer-based visuals and bringing them into this old shitty medium and making them look, frankly, a lot worse.
And you do like you do sound design stuff? Like you use like what kind of instruments do you use?
Oh no, it's all
Just,
visual.
just visual. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's a what's the website called for your?
You could follow me on Instagram. That's where I do
Mm-hmm.
most of my business.
Mm-hmm.
It's Feinberg Experimental Light Project, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Feinberg Feinberg, and then EXP Light Project on
Cool.
Instagram, and you can hit me up there if you need anything. And also, you can see some of the team's former work in terms of, we do like live video sets where like I will just play a Black Sabbath album in the background
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
live mix over top of it. And for some reason, it's very meditative and puts me in a really good mood.
Like you do it in galleries and stuff, or like public spaces for the
I've
video.
done, yeah, I had a really nice time. A few times in college, I would do live oil mixing
Mm-hmm.
on overhead projectors, which is a really incredible world, all the way from like the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That and so I did that for bands like my friend's band, rap project, Bum Sweat,
Mm-hmm.
and a band called Click, and then I also did it for at the now defunct Goldilocks Gallery for my friend's band Best Cheapest. And these were all, I mean, they were really incredible, wonderful experiences, especially because no one sees these things very much anymore, especially like college crowds. When you
Mm-hmm.
first turn on a projector or any sort of light source, it really it like freaks people. It's fun to see the whole crowd turn for a moment and see that there's going to be a new visual element. Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
sucks, but most of the time it's a really good time.
Before the shutdown, was there a pretty vibrant like indie music scene in Philly?
There's always been a pretty great basement scene,
Mm-hmm.
especially indie rock was like jingle jangly, like lanky white boy music
Mm-hmm.
was very big in the Temple basement scene. And but there's always been a very strange second current that always runs through it. There are places like Lava Space, which is extremely experimental. There's a vibrant hardcore scene that runs through like House of Yarga and things like this, like very weird places that I desperately miss. And then there's also I've not explored it very much at all, but I am told that there's an incredible battle rap scene here in Philly. I mean, there's always
Mm.
been fantastic rappers that come out of Philly, but the battle rap scene I hear is really fantastic. And there are some people putting out, independent work, and pressing their own stuff and making their own tapes. And I mean, if you move to Philadelphia, you can completely 100% immerse yourself. I don't know what it'll be like after the pandemic. I imagine that what most cities should poise themselves for is an explosion of independent creative
Mm-hmm.
thinking, as people have been starved and inside their homes working on their ideas. And I think that right now, in the next year, is going to be an incredible upswing in independent projects, collaborations, exciting new ideas and
Mm-hmm.
ventures between people. And I hope that everyone takes the opportunity right now to center themselves in knowing that this is something that can be taken away from us, and that we should treasure and work hard in whatever way provokes us
Mm-hmm.
to make beautiful work. That's what I'm incredibly excited for that. Incredibly.
Yeah, I hope that more money is put into, the government to help artists, because
Absolutely.
that's like a
Oh.
pretty frustrating, there's not enough. Or like, I mean, like, I'm sure there's, like you said, there's been places in Philly, places that have closed down because of gentrification, like in every major
Mhm.
city. So I hope that, we can save that, you know.
Right. I mean, Philadelphia's like, I know that police budgets were really like under everyone's eye
Hmm.
in the course of the past calendar year with the protests over the summer and things like that. And Philadelphia is always looking to cut back on the arts and cultures budget. But at the same time, that is sort of the thing that I love about art, is that it can be made with no money and can be made
Hmm.
with tons of money. And that either way, and this is something that I pride myself in as a Philadelphian and as someone who loves art, is that I love watching shows that are made for nothing as much
Hmm.
as I love, you know, $40,000 giant stage production, one time only explosion
Hmm.
marionette. I'm not sure. Marionette is an example of expensive stuff. Yeah.
Like in the future, do you see yourself with in regards to your comedy? Do you want to expand it? Like, do you want to like like write and direct like shorts or features?
I directed in college a little bit, and it's nice, but it's a shitload of work, and
Mm-hmm.
it really can be like a kick in the pants. But
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to I like putting on that hat for like a weekend. Like if you get to
Mm-hmm.
do it for just like a little while. And I love to be in things as like an actor, but
Mm-hmm.
and writing things, I would say yes. Directing things, I would say yes sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you find to be the biggest joys and challenges of working in comedy?
I think that in a way that question sort of sets up the feelings of it. The joys, if you do 3 sets in a night, you can have 3 sets of incredible joy and feeling affirmed, and you can really feel like I'm wonderful at this. And then you can also have two sets where you feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I picked the right thing. I should be doing this. And then you can have a set where you're dog shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and the term that Jerry Seinfeld always uses is you're only as good as your last set. And so it like gnaws at your ass all day the next day, and you have to go up again because you have to prove that you're not dog shit. Or you go up on stage and you're like, I am dog shit, and it goes just okay, and you're like, all right, I'm just okay. And I think that that's the fun of it, is that you can watch the best do poorly,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're really like free forming it, or like doing new stuff. And that's sort of fun, is that you have the same stuff as the best. You have pen and paper, And so it's just about applying yourself. So people can always be, there's always like dogs nipping at the back of your legs, like if you are the best, I think. And I'm not the best at all, but I think that there's always a pressure. The fish are always eating each other in the pond, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is kind of cool. Not that
Mm-hmm.
anyone wins, you can't like knock anybody out. That's also sort of the fun of it. It's like bumper cars, it's like it's only as much as you invest in it. So it's like, I don't know, you get bumped around, you have a shit set, but it's like, I don't know, you're in front of 5 drunk people, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well keep on making, doing, having fun with it. And since it's so fun, you get to also like, when your friends do well, you get to like build them up, and when your friends do poorly, you get to shit all over them. And it's so much fun because of that, because there's not really, the only thing that's at stake is your ego, and if you like let that go behind you, that's fine. Let it go and get up more and more and keep having fun. It's just, I cannot emphasize to people. With this said, I'm going to say how fun comedy is. If you want to start, consider just becoming a fan of comedy. But I have so much fun doing it, and I'm amazed that it's a thing that I get to do. It's free. I mean, it's 100% free. You just have to walk to the bar and talk into the microphone. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Your life is incredible. You could have been a Chechnyan beet farmer. Instead, you're telling jokes about the Ghostbusters in Philadelphia.
Do you like keep like a notepad with you, like wherever you go? Or you always like, or do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and you have like some idea from when?
Yeah, all the people will not be able to see it. This is like from the beginning of stand up to 2000 and I want to say 2017, and then this was the next one. And these are 2 full notebooks, like moleskins. And then I have another one. It's also funny because this is all that my family buys me now for birthdays and Hanukkah and stuff like that, is they buy notebooks, which are a kind gift and show that they know you, but also show that they know nothing.
Do you find doing comedy to be a form of self-therapy?
If it is, it's dog shit therapy, because it's the worst fucking therapy I've ever seen. Especially because, I mean, you can't binge drink when you're at therapy. I mean, you could, but you'd probably get asked out.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be escorted from the building. I think that, like, as I do it more and more, you start to see that certain jokes like mean certain things. I don't mean to like psychoanalyze or anything like that, but like, my grandma, I'll get serious. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother started like losing her memory pretty severely relatively recently, and I have a joke about her that was a little bit about that,
Mm-hmm.
about like how she's no longer like there, and like the futility of getting older. But that was at the beginning, it was just a dumb joke about a lady buying a gun, and then it became about like it. I don't mean to say that my jokes are as good paintings, but look, there's shit paintings as well. But like, I mean, like, paintings can be dedicated to people, but so can jokes. And that particular joke, I mean, eventually my grandmother will die, and I know that I've created something in her, in like honor of her. And perhaps it's just a shitty joke, but it's better than the fucking shit that everybody else makes for their grandma, like a shitty card or whatever. I don't know. And it makes people laugh. That's incredible.
Yeah.
There was a joke that's like about you that gets to like live forever in people's heads. I often think about that. Like, sometimes, one time someone came up to me and they were like, I thought about that joke that you said. And I was like, what the are you kidding? You thought about that? That's just a stupid thing in my notebook, you know? And now it's living in your head while you do the dishes. That's it. I don't know. I think that that is a testament to human creativity and the joys of art making, that you can think about a joke, you can think about a painting, and the longer that you do it, the more that you get out of it.
Mhm.
The great beauty of making a piece of something or writing something is that you'll come back to it year and year and year again and again. But every time it'll have a new meaning if you're really looking.
When you're performing live, are the audiences pretty receptive to your work, or do you ever deal with hecklers? You ever like gotten angry at the crowd and told them to fuck off, and anything like that?
Yeah, I George Bruderman is a really good friend of mine, and he once he said he told a story about me once. He goes, I come downstairs and Feinberg is screaming at the audience, "That's what Wolverine does," or something like that. Like I'm like yelling at them about something so fucking arbitrary. And I mean, I'm young in the game of it. Like people take me aside a lot, and they'll be like, you got to stop getting so angry. I get extremely angry sometimes. I wonder if it'll be different after the pandemic. I
Mm-hmm.
really am trying. That's like another thing that I'm trying to work on, is like I get mad when the audience isn't listening and talking and all of
Mm-hmm.
these things, and I wish that I could be like Don Ricklesy and like go
Mm-hmm.
after them and be really
Mm-hmm.
funny. Most of the time it just comes across as angry. The worst that I ever got was actually this sort of tracks back. Um I did a show, like a couples show with an ex of mine, and we she's a fucking dirtbag too, and like, you know, especially comedically. And so we were just being like really crass and rude, and we're both Jewish. And someone in the audience, like a Orthodox Jewish woman, like messaged me after the show and was like, "You're disrespecting Jewish people
Mm-hmm.
because of how crass and rude it is." But I think hopefully it presents a nice, varied depiction. Chava, if you're out there and you're listening, I appreciate the messages, and we had a pretty nice correspondence for the whole while.
Are there any other unusual stories you'd like to share, David, about your journey in comedy, or anything about the environment of like Philadelphia compared to other cities you lived at?
Hmm.
Like, do you feel there's anything unique about that environment that's in like how's it inspired your current comedy?
Hmm. Um, you can really, this is something that I always say to people, is that Helium Comedy Club is right across the street from the Philadelphia Improv Theater, and one of my favorite things in the world, especially because Philadelphia is so incredibly small. If you have a bike, you can go
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. So a lot of times I would go to 20th and Sansom Street, where both of the clubs are located, and I would just go back and forth all night. And I would go to the first show at Helium, and then the first show at Fit, and then the second show at Helium, then the second show at Fit. And then I would go to the third show and afterwards hang out at Helium, and then I would jump back over to Fit. And it was a really, I mean, that's the thing that I like, and the thing that is sort of a weird stoppage in comedy right now that I hope ends, is that people are very much in their camps. I will constantly get shit from stand-ups saying, "Why the fuck do you do improv? That's so stupid. Improv is dumb as shit." And improv is dumb as shit, but so is stand-up. You know, it's like it's only worth the coinage that you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the improvisers will always be like, the stand-ups are rude and crass, and yeah, they are. But that's better than, you know. But improv is sometimes like light family nonsense. So I really do feel like both have so much to teach about the other. And really, the mark of some of my favorite comedians in Philadelphia, the Michael S. Watkins and like the Shannon Fahey's and the Rose Lawardos, is how they swap and morph and fit into all of these wonderful new boxes and create new things, because the thing that I think kills a lot of art is sitting in its box, that you think that you're an abstract painter and you just paint abstractly all goddamn day, is fine, and maybe you're good at it, but it's very boring and you're probably not surprising yourself very much. So I do think that, like I said, I hope that this mashed up gumbo of creative thought and ideas is coming out soon. And I hope that it means that we all get to hang out and make stuff together with people that we never had before.
That's great.
Hello, thanks for listening to the Erratic Dispatches podcast. We'll be back shortly after a brief break. Thanks for tuning in to this latest episode of the Erratic Dispatches podcast, featuring an interview with comedian, podcaster, and video artist David Feinberg. For this podcast episode, I have included links in which you can check out David's Instagram, in which you can watch videos. I've also included a link in which you can listen to his hilarious So Tell Us podcast. And there's also a link to his Feinberg Experimental Light Project. And also I've included a link due to David's request to a trans youth nonprofit in which you can hopefully make some donations. Thanks again for listening. I'll be back soon with a new episode. Take care. Bye-bye.